Hello there, how you doing? Jeff DeSocio with the Talent Opportunity Connector for our talent tip for the week. And this is geared more towards hiring side of Talent Opportunity Connector this week. So you ever hear the term companies don't build people, people build companies? That's a famous Zig Ziglar quote about the importance of people and why businesses that forget this never scale the way they should. If you ever walk into a struggling organization, you hear these familiar refrains. We need better systems. To this day and age, we need to implement AI. We need a stronger culture. Why are people so miserable? We need to hire faster, but they never use recruiters. But dig deeper, and what the truth becomes really obvious, right? The problem a lot of times is not the company, it's the people and how they're being developed. How are you developing leaders? Because companies don't magically become great on their own. They are a reflection of people, people helping people, people building companies. Companies are just not a container, right? So at its core, just a legal entity. It's a brand, it's a balance sheet, it's a set of processes. It can be public, it could be private. There's no ambition, creativity, or judgment on its own. But what do people do? When it comes to strategy, strategy comes from leaders thinking clearly. When you talk about AI, we talked about this in one of my podcasts, Market Like a Hotshot, about how AI doesn't create strategy. It doesn't. You need people to create strategy. Innovation comes from individuals willing to challenge the status quo. And culture is always built around human behavior. So growth happens when people learn faster than the market changes. And that's why you need the right people. And also you cannot build a system, you can't system your way back past weak people. I hear this a lot as a recruiter, and as a hiring manager. If you have a weak link on your team, you're not going to build a system around that person. You need strong leaders. Many leaders believe processes fix problems, and that's not always the case. You can't automate accountability. You can't template judgment. You can't KPI your way to trust. And you can't outsource leadership. Systems amplify people, but they don't replace them. So that's an important factor to think. And also great companies invest where it actually matters. High performing organizations, right? Talent's not an expense, it's a growth engine. And we talk about this a lot, my Broad Reach Executive Search, how we help companies invest in leaders, right? Invest in your company to ultimately build revenue in your company. And that's an important thing. Can't look at people in your company as an expense. That's the worst thing. You want to hire for mindset, not just skill. You want to coach them instead of micromanaging them. You want to promote leaders who develop other leaders. You want to create environments where people can do the best work of their careers. Imagine if you could do that in your company. People just don't execute. They own their outcomes. And ultimately you want the outcome, right? So another thing is culture isn't what you say. It's who you develop. Every company says they value their people, but really prove it, right? Real culture shows, who gets promoted in your company, who gets coached, who gets listened to, who gets trusted with responsibility. When people grow, culture strengthens in your company. When people stagnate, culture erodes, and then you have a problem. So the confounding effect of people, is one strong leader usually builds five more. One engaged employee lifts the whole team. Do you imagine if somebody walks in a room and the whole team feels this positive vibe? Those are the people that you want to bring into your company. Right? So that's why one toxic hire, on the flip side, imagine if somebody walks in a room and everybody hides under the table. Is that what you really want? That's why you need to build people, build companies. Over time, companies don't rise or fall because of strategy decks and PowerPoints. They rise and fall because who they invested in, what talent they invested in. And the bottom line, to kind of summarize everything, companies don't build people. People build strategy. People build culture. They build resilience. They build companies. People build companies. If you want a stronger business, stop asking this question: how do we improve the company? and start asking, how do we grow the people who power our company? Because where people grow, everything else follows. And let me tell you, this is absolutely the truth. And I've, as a hiring manager for 25 years, I saw this every single time. And it, of course, and last but not least, as an executive recruiter, you cannot. I'm going to say this again. I said this before. You cannot look at people as an expense in the bottom line of your company. You got to look at people in your company to be leaders, to strengthen your business outcomes and ultimately build revenue in your company. All right, so that's a lot. Have a great day. This is Jeff, the Talent Opportunity Connector, and get in touch with me if you like to build your team. Have a good day.